Hello, dear students, and welcome. This is English language lesson for the 4th grade of secondary school. Today's topic is civil rights heroes. My name is Rejhana, and I will be your teacher today. For today's lesson, you'll need a pen and a notebook, a device with internet connection, and a QR code scanner. Today, you'll explain the concept of civil rights and situations when they are broken. You'll analyze activities during civil rights movement and compare situation during that period with situation nowadays. We'll start today's lesson with a KWL chart. You need to copy and complete only the first 2 columns now. The column about what you already know about the civil rights movement and what you want to know. You can pause the video and do it now. Have you ever heard this quote? If not us, then who? If not now, then when? Do you like it and why or why not? What do you think it means? Take a moment and think about it. Do you know the people in these photos? In the first one on the left, there is John Lewis, a civil rights movement activist who was one of the freedom riders in 1960s. And what about the right one? There is former US President Obama awarding 2011 Presidential Medal of Freedom to the same John Lewis. At his inauguration, Obama signed a commemorative photo with the words, "Because of you, John." Now I'd like you to think about what you already know about civil rights. Pause this video and write down all civil rights you can think of. Then you'll watch a video and compare your answers. So, what are civil rights? Do you remember from the video? They are guarantees of equal social opportunities and equal protection under the law, regardless of race, religion, or other personal characteristics. What happens when people are deprived of their civil rights? Civil rights movement may emerge in order to call for equal application of the laws without discrimination. I'm sure you already have some prior knowledge about events in the USA connected to civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s. I'd like you to pause the video again and write down all years, events, people, or causes that you remember. Let's try to activate your knowledge. What words do you associate with civil rights movement? Write down all words you believe could appear in a text about civil rights movement. Then, when you are ready, listen to the first part of today's text and see if any of the words are the same.
Even though African Americans were given constitutional rights after the end of the Civil War in 1865, They were deprived of civil rights for nearly 100 years after the abolition of slavery. Racial segregation, enforced by the so-called Jim Crow laws, was widespread in the southern United States. Separate but equal was a legal doctrine according to which racially separate facilities, if equal, did not violate the Constitution. In other words, racial segregation was not discrimination. However, in reality, the separate facilities provided to African Americans were rarely equal, or they did not exist at all.
Do you have any of these words or phrases? Constitutional rights, segregation, abolition of slavery, doctrine, discrimination, separate but equal, deprive of, enforce, disenfranchise, bias. Do you know the meaning of these words? Here is a link, bit.ly crvoc, and a QR code. And if you follow this link or scan the code, you can match the words with their explanations. You can pause the video and do it now. In the text you've just heard, Jim Crow laws were also mentioned. But what are actually Jim Crow laws and where does the name come from? Who or what is Jim Crow? Jim Crow laws were state and local laws that enforced racial segregation in the southern United States until 1965. The origin of the phrase Jim Crow has often been attributed to Jump Jim Crow, a song and dance caricature of black people performed by white actor Thomas D. Rice in blackface. As a result of Rice's fame, Jim Crow by 1838 had become a pejorative expression meaning Negro. When Southern legislators passed laws of racial segregation directed against black people, they became known as Jim Crow laws. Let's take a moment to recap what we already know. You can use what you've heard today and your prior knowledge, and if you need help, you can go back and listen one more time. What are civil rights? Name some of them. What happened in the USA? When was slavery abolished? What does separate but equal mean? When you do this, you can continue with the lesson. Now you listen to a song called "Oh Freedom," and here are the lyrics. This song depicts the feelings of African American community at the time of civil rights movement. Here is the QR code and a link to the song bit.ly song. I'd like you to listen to it and please watch the video carefully because in the photos in the video you'll see many of the rights African Americans were deprived of and things they wanted to change, and they will be written on signs and banners they are carrying. Please write them down. So what did they demand? You can pause the video and compare. African American community was nominally granted civil rights. Segregation was unconstitutional, but in practice, especially in the South, the law was not enforced. Now you will watch a short video about the civil rights movement. How did they protest? Was it violent or non-violent? Here are some of the ways they used to demand their constitutional rights: demonstrations, boycotts, marches, voter education, rallies, and civil disobedience, including sit-ins. So, what is actually a sit-in? It's a form of protest where demonstrators see themselves, often in public places, and do not move. African Americans used it to protest against racial segregation when they would sit in these seats reserved for whites, for example, in restaurants and on buses. There is a photo of one of the most famous sit-ins called Greensboro 4 from 1960. You will hear more about it later on. In the photo on the right, there is that lounge counter where they sat, and it's now displayed in the International Civil Rights Center and Museum. Now you'll hear stories about people or events from the period of the civil rights movement. I'd like you to pay attention to the details. For each person or event, you should take notes. So, who or what is it about? When did it happen? What did they protest against? What did they do? And what results did their action have? First, copy the chart into your notebooks and then listen one by one. You need to take notes and not write full sentences. You can click the pause button now to copy the chart, and when you are ready, continue.
On March 2, 1955, Claudette Colvin, a 15-year-old student from Montgomery, Alabama, was arrested for refusing to give up her seat to a white person on a crowded, segregated bus. Claudette was handcuffed, forcibly removed from the bus, and convicted on 3 charges in juvenile court: disturbing the peace, violating the segregation laws, and assaulting a police officer. This incident occurred 9 months before another woman named Rosa Parks rejected a bus driver's order to give up her seat in the colored section to a white passenger. She refused to give up her seat not because she was tired physically, but because she was tired of giving in. She was arrested and brought to court on the next day. She was found guilty of disorderly conduct and she had to pay a fine. 3 years after the U.S. court called for the desegregation of all schools throughout the nation, 9 African American students were denied entrance to the formerly all-white Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. By the end of September 1957, the Little Rock 9 were admitted to Little Rock Central High under the protection of the Arkansas National Guard, but they were still subjected to a year of physical and verbal abuse by many of the white students. In 1960, 4 African American college students sat at a department store's lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina, and ordered coffee, but were denied service. They refused to leave and stayed there until the store closed that night, despite being harassed by the white customers at the store. Over the next 3 days, the sit-in continued to grow, with more than 300 students taking part. The sit-in protest expanded to nearby stores, and soon it spread to other southern cities. In 1960, 6-year-old Ruby Bridges was one of the black children in New Orleans who passed the entrance exam for the all-white William Frantz Elementary School. Ruby and her mother were escorted to school by 4 federal marshals. As soon as Ruby entered the school, whites pulled their own children out. All the teachers except for one refused to teach while a black child was enrolled. A few days later, white parents began bringing their children to school. Yet still, Ruby remained the only child in her class taught by one teacher until the following year. Federal marshals continued to escort Ruby to and from school. Throughout 1961, civil rights activists, known as Freedom Riders, took buses in mixed racial groups in the American South to call national attention to the disregard for the federal law that banned racial segregation on interstate travel. the Freedom Riders were violently attacked by white mobs before being arrested by police. The Great March on Washington was held in Washington, D.C. on August 28, 1963. The purpose of the march was to advocate for the civil and economic rights of African Americans. At the march, Martin Luther King Jr., standing in front of the Lincoln Memorial, delivered his historic "I Have a Dream" speech, in which he called for an end to racism. Approximately 250,000 people took part in the march.
And here are the answers for all of them. You can pause the video and compare. If you have used some other words, it's okay. What is important is that you manage to catch the main points of each event. Civil rights movement was and is not happening only in the USA. Almost all countries actively deny civil rights to some minority groups. Because civil rights are enforced by countries, it is difficult to establish an international standard for civil rights protection, despite the efforts of bodies such as the United Nations. Here are some examples of civil rights issues. For example, there is IRA in Northern Ireland, South Africa with apartheid and Nelson Mandela, women's rights movement, and LGBTQ community. Have you ever heard about George Floyd? I'd like you to take a look at the cover of Time magazine from the 15th of June and read the story behind that cover and the accompanying piece called "I Cannot Sell You This Painting." Links and QR codes are provided for both. When you look at that painting carefully, you can see some names written around the painting. Who are these people? After reading, I'd like you to think about the situation now in the USA and try to compare it to the 1950s and 60s. How are they different or similar? Then I'd like you to write a short paragraph about your thoughts on civil rights. It should have from 100 to 150 words, and you should include your opinion about what should people do in situations when civil rights are broken. If you believe somebody should react, what do you think, who should that be? And finally, do you believe it is important to react in such situations, and why or why not? We have come almost to the end of today's lesson. I hope you have managed to learn something new and also something that was on your list in the second column earlier. Now I'd like you to write down everything that you've learned today in the last column. And this is your homework. You need to do two different tasks. The first is shorter and the second one longer. You can choose what interests you most from these options. For the first task, you can write an infographic about a civil rights hero or event. You can write a timeline of events, or you can imagine you are a newspaper reporter doing an interview with a civil rights hero and prepare questions you'd ask him or her. You can also do a research and find out which holidays are celebrated in the US connected with civil rights movement or heroes. For the second task, you can choose to research and present music of the civil rights era, some examples of civil rights violation nowadays. You can research more about freedom riders, or you can present in more detail a life of a civil rights activist you find most interesting or important. And this would be all for today. Until some other time, bye-bye.